So now we move into the slot just before lunch, which is our business showcase slot. I'd like to take this opportunity to just say thank you to our exhibitors who are out in the area where you've been having tea and coffee and lunch. Our showcase, business showcase, is presented by Oxford Computer Group today, and I'd like to welcome David Guest to the stage, who's going to try and ask whether we're actually thinking about the wrong problem. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. This almost feels like home. Been here a few times now. I actually loved that password piece. That was superb. I like the fact that it was a Microsoft paper that you used. Microsoft make me change my Microsoft password every 37 days. Which is really annoying. I did think, while I was listening to the sessions this morning, that I've got this completely wrong, and I need to do completely different session and need to redo the slides. But actually, no, I think it ties in quite nicely. Because we're talking about what IT can do and how IT can make sure that we're putting the right protections in place. And from looking at the policies and things about passwords, what we actually need to do is make it easier for the users to do the right thing, however it may be. And that in itself has changed over the years. We used to have a traditional office. I can actually remember 30 odd years ago driving 18 miles to park up in the office car park and then go and sit at my desk. And I never moved. I stayed there working on my databases and my applications, and my PC was controlled by the fact that it was in my office. It didn't have a network. These were in the days when networks were just a pipe dream. But when networks came around, it became easy to control them. We put some software on that actually allowed you to control what the workstation could do. They eventually morphed into this horrible thing called group policies, which hopefully will go away fairly soon. That would be nice. But we had fixed desktops. You had fixed connectivity. You couldn't get in unless you were there. And it was all managed. Things worked really well. But then it changed. I don't know if anybody actually remembers SneakerNet. Yes? Still around. How many people have you seen wandering around with a keyring full of USB data sticks, and they wonder which one's actually got the data on that they want to put on your PC? But it's the same idea. Remote access became something useful. The sound of a dial-up modem spinning up so you could go in and check your, well, whatever it was you actually checked in those days. But these things don't happen anymore. We have a cloud storm. We've seen the horrible graphics about shadow IT, or whatever else you might want to call it, but somebody basically taking your IT services and moving it outside. How on earth do you track that and make sure it doesn't happen? Multiple applications, multiple different locations that you work from. So I'm signing in today from here, using the wireless here. Might or might not be a good idea. That depends. I have a security colleague who will never, ever sign in to a public wireless because he believes that's a security hole. I'm a little more realistic and think I actually have to work. But we have nobody actually based in the office who is a techie. Our salespeople there occasionally. Now and again we'll have some support people in our support office, but us techies, we're out and about wherever it happens to be, which can cause problems, particularly if your reporting tool says that you are in a geographic impossibility, which is a different problem. But security is not about keeping things safe. Well, that sounds odd, doesn't it? So the security around the crown jewels, you think the security is there to keep the crown jewels safe. No, it's not. If you can actually get to the crown jewels, you can do what you like with them. You could pull the Star of India diamond off the crown and run off with it, if you can get to it. Security is about keeping people away. Security is about keeping the wrong people out and letting the right people in. We have a problem now. Where is out? We have no out. This perimeter that everybody's been talking about for years, it has really gone, particularly with Microsoft now making Kerberos available on the internet for accessing your internal services. What perimeter? We haven't got just desktops to worry about. So we used to be in the nice situation where we could control what was on our Windows 3, 4, 5, Vista, 7, 8. Whatever happened to 6? Sure, it was there somewhere. But we've now got all of this lot. Phones, tablets, phablets, Windows laptops, Mac laptops, notebooks, you name it. In fact, the only thing that's not on here is a pen and paper. And by the way, we should control some of those as well, because I have seen some very important things written down on a piece of paper and just discarded. Interestingly, every single picture I've put on that screen is different. They are all different devices, all of which may or may not require different management. But what do users want? Oh, you're users. You want access to your data? Yes. You want your access when you want it, where you happen to be, using whatever you choose to access the data. Why should I mandate that you have to have Excel 2010 in order to open up that file? You want to use Excel 2016 because you happen to have a copy at home and it works better and it's faster and it gives you more features. So why should I be controlling that? But they also want it without having to sign in. Well, without having to sign in more than once. Single sign-on. We need to be able to give these people these accesses. What systems are we using? If we go back in traditional land, and I did love the picture of the old green screen. My one was actually orange, but it's the same idea. They actually gave us some control. We had local administration for these systems. Somebody in Unix land, or System 370 land, or the old System 3Xs that we used to have, or if I really go bad, ICLs. Somebody used to go in there and create you an ID and a password, and it might get stored in a world-readable text file that you'd actually start to use. But maybe it wouldn't, but you still have that control. Current systems, well, they've probably still got local admin. How many people here actually do admin on things like Blackboard or Canvas, where you go in and you create an account, or you run a script to do it, or you've got an identity management link that goes and forces IDs into the background. But it's still a local admin. Well, these days, we've got cloud-based services. Now, I don't know how many of you are actually doing it, but have you got to the stage where you are auto-provisioning the cloud-based system based on an identity that exists in some other cloud? And that's where Microsoft are going to with SCIM and the connectors that they provide within Azure AD. But what we're actually doing, and what we actually want to do, is protect the data. The data is the thing that counts. The data is the crown jewels. There's two kinds of data. Structured data. So I mentioned databases. Databases are structured data. You can't get at the data unless you've got an ID and a password or an application that allows you into that. And I can then control what you can do with that data because I control the application, I control your ID, and I can tell what you see. That works really well. Unstructured data is more of an issue. How many people here use a variety of word processor, a variety of spreadsheet, a variety of PowerPoint? Used to be called Harvard Graphics, if anybody remembers that. Unstructured data, it's a file. That file exists somewhere. It might be on your laptop, it might be in the cloud, it might be on a server, it might be on SharePoint, it might be on a USB stick. In some cases, it might even be on a 3.5-inch floppy disk. Anybody still got any 3.5-inch floppy disks at home? Yeah. But when there's no border, how do we actually control this? Well, Microsoft have this concept of putting everything in a position where we can identify who you are and therefore allow you to see it. So from your on-premises Active Directory, we can, I do love the way this slide builds. This is a Microsoft slide, not one of mine. But we can use Microsoft Active Directory, Azure-based, to do that authentication. Other cloud-based identity providers are available. I can give you their names if you really want them. But the idea here is, by linking that Azure Active Directory to your source of identity, we only have to use one ID, one password. But I can now start to get access to all of these other services. I can make sure that I've controlled it well. I can actually start to add on things like, tell you what, I'll let you access your files, and you can do it on your phone as long as your phone has got up-to-date antivirus and a PIN code. Is that okay? That's a bit of control. And this controlled access starts to give us better control of where the data is and what we can do with it. All linked to this Azure AD. Now, Azure AD is a beast. There's no getting away from it. It is a mammoth tool that we can use. And I'm guessing most of you have already got one, because most of you have probably got Office 365 somewhere. And that Office 365 will be linked probably to your Active Directory through one way or another. Could be AD Connect. If it's DirSync, please upgrade it quickly before they turn it off, because that really will hurt. But we can then use this Active Directory to do things. Now, there's a lot of features in AD, Azure AD, that you have to pay for. But actually, there's a lot of features in there that are free. I can link up to 10 applications to all of my user base and give them single sign-on for free. So actually make use of it, and we're happy to help you do that. Conditional access allows me to say, where are you? Okay, you're in the office, that's fine, I'll just let you in. You're out of the office, but you're on a device I know, that's fine, I'll let you in. But then if you're all the way over here, sitting at home on your home PC, which your kids have been playing with, and your antivirus has been turned off because the kids wanted to get onto Minecraft, well, actually, I'm not going to let you in, even if you have got an ID and a password and you can do multi-factor authentication, because that antivirus is turned off. And conditional access starts to give us that extra layer of control. Allows us to make sure that you can get access to the data where you want it if you're in the right place. Azure AD, I said it was huge. It's doing a ridiculous number of authentications every day. What Microsoft then do is a bit sneaky. So they monitor any application and any user that is authenticating against Azure AD from wherever it is. And if they see somebody in, let's pick a country, let's go for Sokovia. So somebody from Sokovia starts to do a brute force attack against a directory, and they can see from an IP address or set of IP addresses a number of authentications happening instantaneously against an Azure AD. What they will do is they will block that IP address. But they won't just block it for where it's attacking, they'll block it from every Azure AD to make sure that that attack can go no further. If you log in successfully, it will log that. If you then log in sometime later from somewhere that is physically impossible for you to get to, this is the geographic thing I was talking about earlier, it will say, we don't think this is right. And you can check it, and you can go in and actually turn it on. Or you can say, you're right, that guy could not physically have gone from London to Amsterdam in the space of 3 minutes. So I'm going to enable multi-factor authentication for his next authentication. So he must authenticate properly. Great idea. Except for the fact that actually the guy who went from London to Amsterdam was me, and I did it by walking from Marks and Spencer's into my customer site. My customer site uses a Dutch ISP, so all of a sudden I'm in Amsterdam. But I know that, so I can actually go and logically look at the log and go, ignore that one, because it makes sense too. But we were talking about insider attacks, and insider attacks are really the place that you're going to get breached. Now, it could be the simple thing of somebody interviewing on the street to find out what your password is. And if you haven't seen the video, please let me know and I will show it you, where a US student was actually asked specifically about passwords and in the space of 30 seconds gave away her password. That's quite worrying given that they knew we were talking about passwords. But the chances are also that your insider threat will be somebody in the sales team who goes into your complete customer records and takes a copy because they've just taken a job with Fred down the road who has the same customer base and wants to hit your targets. From a consultancy side, they want to take the intellectual property that I have spent months or years putting together, and they want to go and use it with their new opportunity. So I need to make sure I can block those people and keep them down. The worrying one for me here is not the high numbers. 2,500 internal security breaches, yeah, that's okay, we know about all of this. 1 in 5 of us think this is a priority. That's worrying. If we're not worried about the insider threat is going to win. So we need to be looking at this more carefully, not just looking outside. Oh, while I remember, technology to help you address security flaws. Quite important. If certain large Japanese organizations who may or may not make music systems and may or may not rhyme with phony, if they had had something in place which could tell them that someone had taken the hash from this PC and gone sideways to find a hash that would get them on to a server, and then used that to get onto the server where there were lots of hashes that got them onto the rest of the server so they could get into the email system and just dump everything and make it public. If Sony had had that, their breach would have lasted less than 6 hours rather than 9 months. And the average length of time that an attacker will be in your system before you realize it is measured in months. Not hours or days, months. So systems like Microsoft's Advanced Threat Analytics or linking your firewalls, proxies and routers and everything else to some form of log analysis to tell you when things go wrong is really important. But you now need to do that for the cloud as well. So you need to really start monitoring what's going out through your proxies and out through your firewalls to see whether or not people are actually attacking the outside from inside. Are they dumping lots of data into a cloud service that you don't know about? And make sure you can get access to that. But your data needs to be accessible. People have got to be able to get onto their files and open them when they need them, update them, save them back to somewhere secure. Is anywhere really secure? Okay. Anyone tell me what the most secure PC is? One that's switched off and dismantled I like, although that, I don't think that's no more. I don't think that's a PC anymore. I think that's now components. Disconnected from the network is the only way you can actually get a C2 classification. Is disconnect something from the network, which makes it completely useless because it's just sitting there as a lump of tin. But we need to find a way of making sure that we allow as much security around the data as we can. So, data governance, and we talked about classification before, and the idea of making sure we have a classification, and then making sure that users use it. Well, how do your users understand what classification is? So Microsoft did a piece of work around rights management service, which is really good, and they decided that we should have 5 classifications. Let's see if I can remember these, because it's been a while. Public, everybody can get it. Internal, confidential, secret, top secret. Okay, I'm working with my legal team who work for a different company. What classification do I use? Public. Why? Well, they're not internal. It can't be classified. It's not secret or top secret because I'm sharing it with someone outside. So naming the policies itself can cause you problems. Microsoft have now got personal, general, sensitive, and highly sensitive as their standard classifications. Those seem to work quite nicely. And there you go. And I quite like these policies. I'm not going to do the history lesson. We're not going to talk about the 1940s and during the Second World War and bigoted, because I don't think it's applicable. But I particularly like the not to be seen by anybody at all. OK, maybe not. And where is this data? Where have we put it? Network file shares are great, lovely things, except you can't get them when you're not on the network. Internal SharePoint, again, you need to gain access to it, so we're making it published, not great, and so on. So, how many of them are secure? Well, we think the top few are, but cloud storage isn't really secure because it's the cloud. USB stick, is that secure? OK, an unencrypted, no thumbprint on it USB stick is not secure, but that's actually what most people have. And as an email attachment, that's definitely not secure at all. So we need to make sure that this unstructured data of ours is still secure regardless of where it is. And we do that by doing the classifications. We've put conditional access on to make sure that you can only get these things from where you are. Wouldn't it be good if I can send somebody an email? Now that email is protected. It's got an attachment. You can open the attachment. No problem at all. It's a Word document. You can cut and paste from that Word document as long as you don't paste it into anything that's not under my control. You can't print it. In fact, the only thing you can do on it that I can't stop you doing is a screenshot on an iPhone or an iPad, because that's hardware and I can't turn it off. So we can make sure we can do things like that. We make sure that we're using file sharing in a controlled manner. And we make sure it's easy for the users. So file protection is available with lots of different versions of Office, and you can get extra bits of tools that you can put on and make whole things singing and dancing. But it allows us to share files with people outside. So I can send a file to David, and I can make sure that David can open the file. Do you use Word? Yes. Yep. So here's a Word file. You can open it. Now, when you open that file, it's going to ask you for your username and password. Sorry about the password. But your username must be your email address, or must be associated with your email address, because that's where I sent the file. Now, if you imagine the file has got a doorman, big burly guy, dressed in a nice sharp suit, bow tie, muscles. Your name's not on the list, mate. You can't open the file. Or rather, actually, your name is on the list. Please, have the data. But by the way, you have to leave the data here. You can't take it anywhere else. You can't print it. No photographs. Everything else is invalid. How's that? Now, what's to stop you forwarding that file? Absolutely nothing. It's a file. You can save it. You can put it on a USB stick. You can give it to somebody. And they open the file. I'm going to pick on you again. So you open the file. And it asks you for your email address. And you put it in. But you don't know his email address. And you definitely don't know his password. So can you open the file? No. So that file is protected. It didn't matter what happened to it. I don't care if somebody breaks Dropbox and takes all of my files, because they're all now protected. And the only people that can open them are the people on the list. And that has to be the nicest, easiest way of protecting your unstructured data. And I can share it with different priorities. So I can actually share it with David and say, you know what, I trust you, you can do anything you like. Cut, paste, edit, send it on to someone else, I trust you. Or I can say, actually, I don't. You can't do anything other than read, which is good. Now, at the same time, whilst we go through this, and we send out the email that's got the attachment and everything else is fine, wouldn't it be nice if I realised just before I hit the send button that the David that popped up in my to box is not the one I wanted it to go to. But I didn't check that until after I'd hit send, and oh, bother. But of course, because his name's on this list, because I added it using this tool, I've now got a file out that somebody can read that, oh, they shouldn't. Now that's a problem. So, okay, I know the file name. So I go into the file, and there's a little link in the file itself that says track. So I go to the tracking tool. There's the file. And I can see that the wrong David has access. So I just click on the delete button. That takes his name off the list. He gets the file, tries to open it, he can't. Now that file has never been in the cloud. But there's a pointer to it with the file name and its description and the people who have access. And I can remotely turn that off when I want to. It's when I want to, because it's my file. So RMS, Rights Management Service, which provides this functionality, is available inside Office 365. So you already have this functionality. Azure Information Protection, which is this bit, is an add-on. But it makes it so much easier and allows you to do classification of files in a nice, friendly way. When you get the slide set later, there are screenshots. There's also a pile of other stuff. But I realise I've only got about 4 minutes left, and I don't want to keep you away from your lunch any longer than I have to. What I will say, though, is that this is what it looks like. And this, to me, is the best thing ever. So we've got an extra bar. We're all used to the ribbon. We've seen it for years. When Microsoft brought it out, we all hated it, and now we've got used to it. It's not so bad. But underneath that, I've got an extra bar, which is the AIP bar. And the AIP bar serves wonderful cocktails. Absolutely great. But it gives me some options. So personal, public, internal, confidential, secret, or eyes only. If I ever do the demo of eyes only for you, be prepared for purple. Because purple tie. No, I got it wrong. So, all documents are now default to internal. So they are classified automatically whenever you create them. When you open a document, it is classified as internal automatically, unless it has another classification. So if I classify it as personal, it's personal. That's it. If I go to public, it's public. I can move it to secret and say this is a secret file. Nobody else is allowed to use it. I can then move it from secret back to public, and this system's going to say to me, if you're doing that, I want to know why. What gives you the right to say this file is no longer secret? And it audits it, so I can see what's happening with the file. Users will look at that and think, actually, I know what I'm doing. This is a personal file. Keep your hands off. This is a file that's going to be public. This is a file that I think is confidential, which is why we prefer confidential to secret. This is an old slide. And users get on really well with this. Wherever I've put it in front of a user, they've been fine. When I put it in front of IT, they have lots of questions about why and what's going on, because they're overthinking it. But just for classification, this is exactly what we've been shouting for years. And this is my demonstration of eyes only in my last minute before I stop. You may recognise some of the film titles that are on the screen. There's one that's wrong. So somewhere somewhere in there, there's a For Your Eye Only, 1981, really bad film. Don't go and see it, it's not great. But if I change that from Your Eye Only to Your Eyes Only, when I save the file, it does something very weird. It says, I'm going to recommend that you label this file as eyes only, because that is the classification that it should have, because it says in it, For Your Eyes Only. And not only am I going to mark it, I'm also going to put some lovely purple writing in the background to make it eyes only, which you can't take out. Well, you can, but it'll put it back in again as soon as you save the file. Oh, and you can't cut and paste anymore, so the file is as it is. So going back, because I'm going to stop using the slides because there's only another 30 or so. Going back to what we're here for, and IT doing the wrong things. IT, in many cases, is still thinking about perimeters, is still thinking about stopping people attacking your PCs and your servers. The PCs and servers aren't important. The data is the important thing. You wouldn't put a SQL database out and have it available to everybody with no authentication. But yet you're doing that with your Word, your Excel, your PowerPoint, and your other unstructured data files. And it's not just about where it is, because as we've seen and as we know, people will pick up rights to access shares because they were in a job 3 years ago and they've just moved sideways and nobody's ever taken their old rights away from them. So it's very important to make sure that the files are only really accessible by the people who use them. And that, I think, is where the IT professionals need to start looking for their security going forward. At that point, because I'm a minute late, I'm going to stop and let you all get some lunch. Thank you.